I'm the real daughter of the Ava family's group who has been living away from home. Ryan, a famous designer, is my boyfriend. However, when a car accident happened unexpectedly, he immediately protected the fake daughter in his arms. Before long, I was framed and put into prison, and he personally put handcuffs on me. Reborn in this life, it was my turn to choose a design instructor. I skipped over Ryan, who was looking at me expectantly, and turned to choose another one instead. Later, he knelt in the ice and snow for 3 days, with his eyes red and swollen. Can we go back to how we were? Cindy was the first person to visit me after I was imprisoned. By then, she had already inherited all the shares of the Ava family's group and became the new chairperson. She wore delicate makeup and paired it with a privately customized high-end suit. Looking elegant and composed, she was completely different from me, who was thin and haggard. Sister, you're so lucky. You misappropriated the company's extremely valuable property without permission, but in the end, you were only sentenced to life imprisonment. I thought it would be the death penalty. Through the glass, she looked at me arrogantly, pretending to be surprised and covering her lips, but the fake smile in her eyes was full of provocation. I gave her a faint glance. Your hypocritical appearance really makes me sick. You know better than anyone else what despicable means you used. As soon as I finished speaking, Cindy laughed. My silly sister, it seems you still haven't figured it out even now. Who stole your design drafts? And that illegal contract you signed in person? All of these were given to me by your sweetheart. When I learned the truth, my heart suddenly clenched and started to ache violently. Seeing that my face turned pale, Cindy laughed even more wildly. I had suspected many people and even worried that I had accidentally leaked it myself, but I never suspected Ryan. I had a heart attack, felt suffocated with pain, and fell to the ground while clutching my chest. Vaguely, I heard Ryan pounding on the glass nervously and calling my name. Annoying. He wouldn't even let me die in peace. When I opened my eyes again, my biological father was standing in front of me, holding my hand and asking me to choose a design instructor. Ava, you've suffered so much outside all these years. You choose first. The top designers in the country gathered together, wearing well-tailored suits and standing in front of me. Now, my father in the Ava family was terminally ill with heart disease and didn't have much time left. It was necessary to choose the next heir. As for Cindy, she had occupied my place for 20 years. In the end, she cried pitifully, hugging my father's leg and refused to let go. Dad, the kindness of raising a child is greater than the kindness of giving birth. I'm also your child. Why should the company be given to sister alone? Finally, my father couldn't bear it and decided to let Cindy and me do internships in the company. And he announced publicly that whoever could win the first place in the autumn fashion show would be the next heir, and the design mentor was the most important part. I stood in front of Ryan. He was wearing a white suit, with gentle eyes. His facial features looked refined and gentle, and his temperament was like a piece of unpolished jade, making people can't help but feel close to him. Not only was he attractive in appearance, but he was also an art director at a young age. His works had been shown in many fashion weeks and he had made a name for himself internationally. In my previous life, I chose him at just one glance. Unexpectedly, it was like inviting a wolf into the house. Meeting him again, I resisted the urge to strangle him and didn't let my eyes stay on him for a moment. After a while, I said to my father and the Ava family, none of them here is the one I want. Ryan, I saw a puzzled look on Ryan's face. He should have been fully confident, but I didn't even give him a proper look. In response, he actually took the initiative to stand out and greeted me politely. Miss Ava, could you please give me a look? I'm confident that I can guide Miss Ava to design satisfactory works. I looked down at him and smiled faintly. Don't you understand what I said? Today, all the outstanding people are gathered here. Who isn't outstanding? Where does your confidence come from to surpass them and be my instructor? As soon as these words came out, Ryan's face immediately turned as red as the clouds at sunset, and he went back to the crowd with an embarrassed look. Cindy accused me coquettishly of being ungrateful and embarrassing Ryan. I gave her a casual glance. Since my sister admires him so much, I'll give him to you. I believe you two must be a perfect match. Cindy was left speechless for a moment. Suddenly, my eyes were attracted by a bright color. The golden long hair was particularly eye-catching among the dark formal clothes. The man was wearing simple blue casual clothes, paired with white suit pants on the lower body. One hand was casually inserted into his pocket, and the other hand was holding a coffee cup. He stood in front of the window, calmly holding the coffee cup. His deep blue eyes and shoulder-length blonde hair set off his snow-white skin, and his high and straight nose was like a mountain, full of nobility. What a good-looking man. He's really impressive. I asked my father in the Ava family, is he a designer? My father nodded. After getting an affirmative answer, I happily pointed and said, I choose him. Cindy put her hands on her hips and sneered, sister, stop dreaming. Leo is the company's design director. Dad specially hired him as a senior designer from abroad. He won't take on newbies. I walked forward without looking back. How do you know it's impossible without trying? Everyone held their breath, waiting for me to be slapped in the face. When I walked into his private office and he heard the noise, Leo lifted his eyelids and gave me a cold look. I'm not interested in being anyone's instructor. He seemed to be keeping people at arm's length, and his whole body was giving off a cold air that warned people to stay away. However, he was the only one who was willing to stand up to prove my innocence and argue for me when I was framed in my previous life. Even though I was just an acquaintance with him, he only did things according to his heart, and no one could influence him at all. If I could learn from him, no matter how Cindy tried to play tricks in the future, it wouldn't change him. Leo. The onlookers saw from a distance that I whispered a few words in Leo's ear. He frowned tightly and took my design draft. Cindy couldn't wait to come up and ask, what did you say to him? How could he agree to take you? I smiled lightly, if you want to know, go and ask him yourself. Then I left the company immediately. When I got into the car, a pale hand suddenly appeared and grabbed my wrist. It was Ryan. He was sweating all over and it seemed that he had rushed out in a hurry. Ava, do you still remember the little cat, Gwai, that you gave me when we were kids? I've been taking good care of it. It's grown up now and misses you very much. Do you want to go and see it together? He smiled a bit shyly. Look at me, I'm so excited that I'm talking incoherently. In my previous life, I was deeply touched by him. Meeting my best playmate from childhood again, of course, my eyes were filled with tears. Our relationship also developed rapidly and went beyond friendship. However, on the way to a dinner party, it was drizzling. Ryan, Cindy, and I were sitting in the back row together. When passing through a crossroads, a drunk motorcyclist rushed over recklessly. A dazzling white light flashed in front of my eyes and the sound of the horn roared in my ears. In just an instant, Ryan beside me pulled Cindy into his arms and tightly protected her head with both hands. Before I could react, I started to roll over and over. I was so dizzy that my legs went numb and I lost consciousness. When I was carried out on a stretcher, the cold and fine raindrops randomly hit my face. I turned my head and saw that Ryan's suit jacket was draped over Cindy's shoulders and he was still holding an umbrella for her considerately. At that moment, I couldn't tell whether the drops sliding down my face were tears or rain. Coming out of the memory, this time, I coldly pulled my hand back. I've long forgotten it. His eyes immediately dimmed and his originally bright smile gradually froze. Ryan didn't expect such a result. I took out a tissue and wiped vigorously the skin that had been in contact with him. Every interaction with him made me feel disgusted. He also noticed my contemptuous look and shrugged slightly, smiling and asking, Ava, am I mistaken? Why do I feel that you hate me? You're not mistaken. I do hate you. If you're sensible, you'd better not show up in front of me. After saying this, I unceremoniously closed the car door, stepped on the accelerator, and drove 100 meters away. In the rearview mirror, I saw that he had been standing there in a daze, and his outstretched hand was still hanging in the air and couldn't be withdrawn for a long time. At night, in the bar, the hot girls were dancing sexily on the stage. Leo didn't even glance at them. He was wearing a white shirt and a black tie, playing with the measuring cup between his fingers. As the top bartender here, as soon as he appeared, countless girls screamed continuously. Many people queued up just to be able to taste the fine wine he mixed himself. It wasn't until early morning that he finally took a break and wiped the goblet in front of him. "I'd like a mojito," he said faintly. "We're closed." I propped my face with my palm, "But I've brought the manuscript of A Master of Cheongsam. Don't you want to take a look?" Only then did Leo raise his head. Our eyes met. I smiled and took 2 steps forward. In the dim light, I couldn't see the road clearly and was about to fall to the ground. But I fell steadily into a fragrant embrace which had a slight lemon fragrance. "Watch out." I quickly stood up, rubbed my nose. "Thank you for your concern. If you fall, you'll break the wine bottles." After saying that, he quickly turned around and got busy again, as if I didn't exist at all. Leo was a design enthusiast. In my previous life, I had heard that the manuscript of A Master of Cheongsam was lost in an antique store and was later burned to ashes in a big fire. I used this as an exchange with him, and sure enough, Leo was moved. If I could find the manuscript, he would agree to be my mentor. "What about my design? Have you looked at it? How is it?" After a long while, he rarely curled the corners of his mouth. "It has a kind of beauty that even if there's no merit, there's at least effort." Could I understand that he was complimenting me? I looked at him eagerly. Finally, he turned around and pushed a glass of fragrant wine to me. "Come to my office tomorrow morning. There are still many things that need to be changed. With your current level, it's just wishful thinking to win the award." Although his words were not pleasant to hear, I still couldn't hide my excitement. He agreed. I picked up the wine glass and took a sip. The hot feeling spread throughout my throat. "Slow down. This wine has a high alcohol content," he kindly reminded me. I looked at the face that was so close to me and somehow borrowing courage from somewhere, raised my glass to him and smirked. "Leo, you have a really slender waist. All your thoughts are spent on this. No wonder your designs are in a mess." His words were sharp, but his ears started to turn red, and there were ripples like a storm in his blue pupils. Appreciating that face that seemed to be kissed by God, I was in a good mood. I picked up the wine glass and wanted to take a second sip, but someone stopped me with a hand. Ryan appeared behind me at some point, looking worried and concerned. "Ava, you're allergic to alcohol and can't drink." I was in a daze and gave him a sideways glance, then touched the wine glass to his lips. He didn't dodge. "All right, since you're worried about me, then help me finish this glass." Ryan picked up the wine and drank it all in one gulp. Soon, a flush appeared on his face. It seemed that he couldn't hold his liquor well. Before he could stop, I bought a dozen bottles and neatly stacked them in front of him. "How can one glass be enough to enjoy ourselves? It shouldn't be a problem for you to drink all these, right?" A look of distress appeared on Ryan's face, but it disappeared like smoke in a second. His Adam's apple bobbed as he picked up the bottles and gulped down the wine. I leaned against the bar counter. It was obvious to anyone with eyes that I was deliberately torturing him. But Ryan was still willing to endure it. Half a moment later, most of the wine on the table had been drunk. Ryan was so drunk that he couldn't tell directions. He stumbled to the toilet while supporting himself against the wall to vomit. Leo asked me, "You don't feel sorry for him at all?" I played with the wine glass in my hand. The transparent material refracted a golden light. I could only sigh softly. Gentle people are the best at lying. Their kindness seems like poppies. Once you take it in, it hurts every inch of your insides, but it's so hard to let go. How do you know that what he did today isn't just an act? Leo pursed his lips and smiled, not bothering to interrupt my melancholy. After that, I saw Ryan come out of the toilet. He was drunk and saw a girl whose back looked very much like mine being dragged roughly into a private room. He stepped forward and threw a punch without hesitation. I don't know where he got the courage from, a beast. "Let her go." Accompanied by the metallic friction sound of the chair sliding on the floor, Ryan suddenly realized that he had mistaken the person. But the man whose good deed had been interrupted wouldn't let Ryan off easily. Soon a group of people surrounded Ryan. They punched and kicked him and picked up chairs to smash hard on his stomach. He covered his head and curled up on the ground. His white coat was now covered in dust, stained with alcohol, blood, and mud. Looking filthy later, he got up from the ground, panting heavily. His eyes and nose were bruised, and one of his legs was also lame. There were tiny, glittering crystals like butterflies on his cheeks. Ryan seemed to see me. Seeing that I was standing there unharmed, he surprisingly smiled. He didn't come to bother me again and turned around to leave alone. Cindy emerged from some corner and tried to ingratiate herself by chasing after Ryan. Before her hand could touch the corner of his clothes, Ryan took a half step back. "Don't touch me." Having been rebuffed there, she bit her lower lip with tears in her eyes and then came to provoke me again. "Sister, no matter how much you dislike me as your sister, you can't take your anger out on my tutor. It's okay if you're mean and bully me on a daily basis, but involving others will damage the reputation of the Ava family if it gets out. Even if you don't think about yourself, you should think about Dad. He dotes on you so much and can't bear to be angered like this." Cindy tearfully complained about all my supposed misdeeds. More and more people gathered around us, as if I had really become that arrogant and vicious rich girl who flaunted her family's wealth. If things continued like this, I guessed that rumors about me would spread everywhere early the next morning. So, I unceremoniously picked up a glass of beer and poured it directly onto Cindy's face. She was caught off guard. Her makeup was smeared, her wet hair stuck to her face, and water was dripping down. "Ah, Ava, are you crazy?" I lowered my eyes and smiled. "Since you've pinned the reputation of a bad girl on me, how could I not do something mean?" Someone took out their phone to take pictures. Cindy covered her face and started to go crazy. "Stop taking pictures. Don't take pictures. Give me your phone." She reached out to snatch the phone and then pressed the delete button hard before throwing it aside with peace of mind. Her facial features were in a mess, completely losing the ladylike and dignified look she had during the day. Cindy tried to pull my hair but was reprimanded and frozen in place. "Be quiet." Leo just spoke casually and walked out from behind the bar counter. There was still a hint of worry between his brows, and his words carried an air of authority even without anger. Countless gazes converged on him, making him the center of attention. He walked up, lifted my long sleeve, and my slender, white arm was exposed to everyone's eyes. There were several dark red scars on it, which still looked shocking even now. "Miss Ava, the second daughter of the Ava family, you haven't mentioned a word about the grievances your sister suffered from your biological parents all these years. You only talked about how the chairman of the Ava family doted on her after she came back. But you forgot that this preference originally belonged to her. You've occupied her life and comfortably enjoyed it for 20 years. There was a stir and a sigh. It turned out that the second daughter of the Ava family was a fake heiress. Those who had previously felt sorry for her began to change sides and side with me instead. I remembered those long-buried memories. When I was young and lived in the slums, my parents either beat or scolded me. They even poured boiling hot water on my hands and legs, leaving scars that could never be erased in my life. During puberty, I was almost raped by my drunk father. Later, I realized that if it wasn't their own child, they wouldn't feel any pity at all. And what about Cindy at that time? She was like the center of attention, wearing the most beautiful long dress and performing on stage. Even if her paintings were as bad as shit, they were still put on display and praised by everyone. Tonight, more and more doubts flooded towards Cindy like a flood. She squeezed through the crowd and fled. Leo also took my hand and led me to leave through the back door. The evening breeze blew through his soft blonde hair. His close-fitting shirt outlined his firm back and hips. I followed behind him, and his eyes like the sea were filled with tranquility. "How did you know about me? Did you investigate me? Am I that bored? You handed me the physical examination report for new employees yourself this morning." I just glanced at it casually. He said he just took a casual look. But it's hard for ordinary people without meticulous thinking to connect these clues together. Well, Leo was never an ordinary person after all. Realizing this, I looked up and saw that the second button on his shirt had somehow fallen off in the hazy night. Through the open collar, his delicate and sexy collarbone was easily visible. He took a half step forward, and I politely stepped back, only to find my back pressed against the cold wall. I lowered my head slightly, and the bangs on my forehead blocked part of my vision. Leo bent down and leaned closer. The familiar scent of lime filled my mind, accompanied by his warm breath, lingering around my ears like a swimming dragon, now close, now far away. After a moment, a low chuckle came from above. He took off a hairpin beside my ears. Somehow, the decoration on it had hooked onto his button. It should have been because the scene was too chaotic just now, and my forehead hair accidentally touched his chest. His well-defined hand wrapped around my waist, and a tingling sensation immediately spread from my toes to my whole body. Heh, you're the first one to say that I have a thin waist. Ava, you were the one who provoked me first. He blushed slightly and tugged at his tie. His breathing became heavier at this moment. I immediately felt something was wrong and pushed his hands away to create some distance. How could this Leo be so different from the one during the day? Could it be that his aloof and noble demeanor was just a disguise? At night, he finally showed his true colors. Early the next morning, as soon as I arrived at the company, I heard my colleagues complaining bitterly. I don't know what's wrong with the director. Basically, everyone went in with a smile and came out crying. Their design drafts were criticized as worthless. Ava, you don't want all those great resources and instead chose him as your tutor. In the future, you'll have a lot to cry about. I took a deep breath. Recalling what I did last night, I felt like my mind went blank, but what had to come would come, and there was no way to avoid it. I knocked on the door of his office and walked in nervously. Director, I heard you were looking for me. Yes. He was dealing with the documents in his hand and his peripheral vision swept over the design draft on the desk. I've already marked the parts that need to be changed for you. As he said, the draft was full of his powerful handwriting. He could spend half a night making detailed corrections, which was quite in line with his usual high efficiency. I don't like procrastination. Put the revised work on my desk before 5 o'clock this afternoon. Can you do that? Yes. After that, there was a long silence in the office, only the crisp sound of typing on the keyboard remained. Anything else? He raised his head and frowned slightly. Director, last night. The words were on the tip of my tongue, but I couldn't bring myself to say them. Who would have thought that I was so dazzled by his good looks that I took advantage of the dark and windy night and kissed Leo on the lips. His eyes darkened and he solemnly promised to take responsibility for me. I couldn't figure out the meaning in his eyes. I waved my hand distantly and replied softly, it was just a joke. Did you take it seriously? At that moment, the strength with which Leo held my hand suddenly increased, our eyes met, and my heart immediately started pounding like a drum. When my hand had become numb, he looked annoyed and easily shook me off. Impossible. Since Leo chose to remain silent now, there was no need for me to bring it up and make both of us embarrassed. So I quickly took my draft and left the office. If I walked a bit slower, I felt like my back would be burned through by his gaze. And after that, it was the beginning of my nightmare. I finally experienced his sharp tongue. Every time I walked up to him and took out my lousy design draft, I was so nervous, afraid that he would say something like, "Where did this trash on my desk come from?" It's hard not to doubt your mental state when you were designing. After going through countless difficulties, half a month later, I stood beside him, waiting for him to pronounce my fate. After a long while, he actually stroked his chin and nodded, which was a rare sight. Not bad. I patted my chest in relief. He looked at me suspiciously and asked, "Am I that fierce?" Leo, don't you have any idea when you ask this question? Before I could answer, he made another annotation on the design draft. There will be a high-end fashion brand from France in the upcoming wedding dress fashion show. Although your work is quite good among its kind, the design here can still be improved. You can refer to the Victorian-style corsets specifically. His words were sharp, but like the bright stars in the dark night, they instantly cleared the fog for me and helped me find the direction. In my past life, it was at this big show that Cindy stole my draft and claimed it as her own. She shone brightly, won the favor of countless masters, and got a stepping stone to go international. But this time, no one could help her steal things. Let's see what she could do. In the evening, Ryan stopped me at the entrance of the company. The injuries on his face had mostly healed, only a faint bruise around his right eye remained. He opened his mouth slowly with a hoarse voice. I heard that you're preparing for the big fashion show. He took the initiative to keep a distance from me so that I didn't feel so disgusted. I'm afraid you've forgotten that you're Cindy's tutor now. We're in a competitive relationship. Are you pretending to be kind? Or do you want to spy on my situation? He took out a stack of documents and presented them to me with both hands. These are Cindy's recent creative ideas. They'll be presented at the big show. I picked them up and then casually tossed them. The white manuscript papers scattered in the air like rain and flew around. I couldn't help but find it funny and said, Ryan, are you only good at stealing design drafts to please women? I don't need to play dirty tricks. I can defeat her fairly without using these despicable means. What you're doing is really looking down on me. Soon, I saw something familiar in the corner. That dress was the one Cindy liked to wear. She was now hiding in the corner, secretly observing everything that happened between Ryan and me. If I had really accepted this design draft just now, Cindy would surely be the first to jump out, pull me and claim that we were colluding secretly, trying to put all the blame on me. What a pity. His acting skills were so clumsy. Once, it was my love that gilded him, which made me deceive myself again and again. I left without looking back. In the remaining 1 month, I was busy preparing the exhibits. There was less than half a year left before the autumn fashion show, and I needed to seize every opportunity to improve. However, I still underestimated Cindy's ability to cheat. On the day when the wedding dress fashion show started, Cindy walked out of the fitting room, holding Ryan's hand. There was still a flush on her face that hadn't faded, which made people have wild imaginations. Sister, Dad will come today. I'm looking forward to your works, she said to me with a smug smile, as if she was sure to win. What dirty thing flew into my eyes? I sat down and said to Leo, who was still drinking coffee beside me, ignoring her. Seeing that she couldn't get any advantage, Cindy snorted and walked away with a twist of her waist. Before long, my assistant rushed over to me and said, Oh no. The model has a stomachache and has been vomiting. She's gone to the hospital now. Never mind. Aren't there substitutes? The substitutes also had problems, the assistant added hesitantly. Now time was pressing. The show was about to start soon. Where could I find a suitable model? But if I gave up, this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity would have to be handed over to Cindy. I could only hold Leo's arm to ask for help. Leo put down the coffee cup in his hand and looked at the dress casually. Then you go. Me? I couldn't help but feel a bit absurd. But I can't even put it on. The waist is too small. Leo stood up from the sofa, found scissors and thread, and was actually ready to adjust it on the spot for an emergency remedy. He lowered his eyebrows, with his long eyelashes fluttering. The needle and thread danced at his fingertips. Under the illumination of the light, he looked resplendent, just like an earl or nobleman walking out of a Western mural. Soon, I walked out wearing the wedding dress that Leo had improved. Looking at my figure in the mirror, I didn't find any disharmony at all. It was seamless. He even sewed up the deep part on my chest with transparent gauze, and the large area of pure white lace patterns covered the ugly scars on my arms. The dress fit as perfectly as if it were custom-made. I couldn't help but think of that night again in my mind. His hands on my waist and the sudden rise in temperature around his ears. I looked back at him, only to find that he was also looking at me. Our eyes met. He clenched his fist and coughed lightly behind his lips, then shifted his gaze. Soon, it was my turn to walk on the stage. Leo sat in the front row watching me. The curtain opened and the spotlight shone on me. Accompanied by rhythmic music, I walked gracefully forward. With one compliment after another, someone recognized me. They stepped forward and gave a thumbs up to the chairman of the Ava family. Chairman of the Ava family, that's your biological daughter, right? She's so beautiful and looks 9/10 like you. Her designs are avant-garde and fashionable. She's both talented and beautiful. You're so lucky. The chairman of the Ava family clapped his hands with satisfaction. Cindy was unhappy when she saw this and pouted to complain. Dad, you should also take a look at my works. They'll be shown right after my sister's." The chairman of the Ava family nodded perfunctorily. Although Cindy's set of works was also outstanding, it was hard to be attracted after such an amazing performance in the front. Seeing that no one wanted to pay attention to her, Cindy then squeezed beside Leo with a flattering look. "Hello, my name is Cindy. I'm Ava's sister," she said. Leo was concentrating on watching the show and ignored her. "Leo, you've been guiding sister all the time, but I don't see your influence in her works at all. Sister is very individualistic and hardly listens to our opinions. It must have taken you a lot of time and energy to guide her." "Unlike me, I'm willing to listen to suggestions," Cindy said. This time, Leo gave her a sharp look. "Ava is an independent designer. There's no need for her works to be similar to mine. I'm just guiding her to bring out her talent and be a guide. Her divergent thinking and artistic attainments are no worse than many famous domestic designers. She should be herself," Leo said. When he said this, there was a subtle arc at the corner of his mouth and there was a soft smile in his eyes, which he didn't even notice himself. Cindy gritted her teeth but still had a smile on her face. "Leo, what's your opinion on my design?" "I'd like to hear the master's opinion," Cindy said. She was afraid that he didn't know, so she specifically pointed it out. However, Leo's smile gradually faded and his expression was as cold as ice in the 12th lunar month, making people shudder and get goosebumps all over. I just got off the stage and saw Cindy standing in front of Leo in horror. I couldn't help being curious and asked, "What happened?" Leo said calmly, "Nothing much. It's just that the design of the second Miss of the Ava family is 9/10 similar to her debut work at the Milan Fashion Week." Even saying 9/10 was giving Cindy face. Ryan stood out to defend Cindy. "There's a misunderstanding. The gentleman has always been mysterious and has never appeared in public. Cindy once received some guidance, so the similarity is understandable." "Yes." Cindy quickly took advantage of the situation and said, "I met him once when I was studying abroad." Unexpectedly, Leo's face completely darkened. His voice was not loud, just loud enough for the whole audience to hear. "When did I guide Cindy? I don't have any impression at all." "Miss Cindy, please explain it," Leo said. The whole audience was in an uproar. I looked at the person in front of me in disbelief. It turned out to be Leo. No wonder there had been no news from him abroad in recent years. Cindy had plagiarized the work of the very person and had the nerve to take credit for it. She stammered and didn't know how to answer for a moment. She could only look at the chairman of the Ava family with teary eyes, seeking help. "Dad, I'm innocent in this matter. It's Ryan. He gave me the design draft. He said it would surely stand out at the exhibition, and then I could ride on the wave and rise higher and higher. You've watched me grow up. You know I'm the most obedient. How could I take the initiative to plagiarize?" Cindy said. Ryan's body suddenly froze and he looked at Cindy with extremely sad eyes. Now that the truth had come out, he was the only one to sacrifice. After a moment, he bowed to Leo and said, "I'm sorry, Leo. This time, I was blinded by greed and took risks to plagiarize your design. I'm willing to take all the responsibilities and make compensations." I was shocked again in my heart. I couldn't believe that Ryan could do this for Cindy. He was willing to give up his bright future and take the blame for her. Leo secretly patted the back of my hand and gave me an affirmative look. "I've already called the police. The police will find out whether it's plagiarism or not," Leo said. The chairman of the Ava family gave Cindy a look and said, "Get out of here quickly. Don't make a fool of yourself here." With the amnesty, Cindy quickly slipped away. The fashion show regained its former liveliness. Many big brands offered me olive branches, intending to reach cooperation for the next quarter. There were too many of them, and for a while, I didn't know which one to choose. Leo threw me a folder. I opened it and saw a comprehensive analysis of various brands inside, with both advantages and disadvantages objectively written down. "The choice is yours. Don't let me down," Leo said. I showed a confident smile and said, "Okay." That night, I went to the bar where Leo worked as a bartender again and celebrated the success of the fashion show with him. The usual, a glass of mojito. I winked at him, but he had an icy face. Then he handed me a glass of orange juice. Did he think of me as a child? I looked at him angrily to show my dissatisfaction. He tapped my head with his index finger. Forgot the commotion last time? I casually took a sip of the orange juice. It was sweet and sour. Of course not. Ryan said I'm allergic to alcohol. Wait, allergic to alcohol. In the previous life, I got rashes all over my body after drinking a few glasses of fruit wine when I went to a rural farmhouse with him. As a result, he didn't sleep all night when he saw how uncomfortable I was. He also took care of me for a whole month, cooked for me with a balanced diet, and boiled chicken soup to nourish my body every week. In this life, Ryan wasn't with me. How could he possibly know that I couldn't drink? Could it be that Ryan was also reborn? That night, I saw a dark figure at the entrance of the villa. Ryan was holding a wine bottle, standing drunkenly in the snow and grinning foolishly at me. Perhaps he had been standing there for too long, and ice beads had already hung on his hair tips and shoulders. I walked around him, but unexpectedly, he caught up with me and grabbed my sleeve. Ava, you're finally back, he said. Since when did the sun rise in the west? Why don't you go to Cindy and keep pestering me instead? He looked at me with his eyes full of mist, knelt down foolishly, and shook my wrist. Don't go. I couldn't use my strength, so I kicked him directly in the chest. Ryan didn't care about the footprints that suddenly appeared on his clothes and just talked to himself. Ava, I owe Cindy a life. Now that the favor has been repaid, can we make up? I really love you. I didn't know what kind of drunken madness he was having and thought it was extremely absurd. Do you think I'm a cabbage in the field that you can trample on whenever you want and ignore whenever you don't? How cheap you are, Ryan. Let me ask you, why do you owe her a life? Explain it clearly. When he raised his head again, his face was red and tears were streaming down his cheeks. 3 years ago, when I was swimming at the seaside, I got a cramp and almost drowned. It was Cindy who pulled me out and found a doctor to rescue me. I interrupted him and said, don't you know that Cindy can't swim? As soon as I finished speaking, Ryan's pupils suddenly shrank and he trembled as if struck by lightning. I used to go to the sea to pick up seafood and sell it for money just to have a full meal. At that time, I saved a drowning teenager. But when I called for others to come and rescue him, there was no one on the beach anymore. Now that I think about it, that teenager was Ryan. No wonder I felt familiar when I first saw him. I shook off his hand and didn't stay for a moment. Since the harm had already been done, the truth obviously didn't matter that much at this moment. I entered the house and looked out of the window. He was kneeling in the snow quietly, as still as a statue. In the magnificent hall, my father and the Ava family was sitting on the sofa. When he saw me coming, he quickly waved for me to come over. When I walked closer, I realized that Cindy was kneeling on the ground at some point, her face flushed red due to excessive emotion. Ava, you've worked hard today. With such an embarrassing thing happening in the family, you still have to clean up your sister's mess. I smiled politely, it's nothing. I've already made a decision. From now on, you'll be the only heir of the company. Cindy then crawled forward on her knees continuously and hugged my father's leg. Dad, I know I'm wrong. Please forgive me just this once. Her shrill cries echoed in the house. After my father left, she just glared at me viciously. Don't think you can beat me. Really? Then I'll wait and see. Ryan knelt at the door for 3 days. In the end, he went into shock and was taken away by an ambulance. At least it saved me from the disturbance. My career was thriving. I followed Leo around every day to visit exhibitions. Although I was busy, it was quite interesting. On the street in early spring in March, there was still a drizzle like goose feathers. I was walking on the street with Leo. He was holding an umbrella, and his face didn't look good. He asked me in a deep voice, after the autumn fashion show, you'll go abroad for further studies? I nodded and then I saw that his knuckles were tightly gripping the handle of the umbrella, and his fingernails turned white from the force. Is it that you don't want to see me that much? Or is it because I'm usually too strict with you? His voice was as soft as a mosquito's buzzing, so faint that I could hardly hear it clearly. I thought back on the bits and pieces of our time together thoughtfully. Actually, it's not like that. You're sharp-tongued but soft-hearted. You seem strict on the surface, but the suggestions you give are always to the point. Leo, you're really a great mentor. Really? But people in the company are saying that you're leaving because you're afraid of me. I shrugged. No, I just think that I should break out of my comfort zone and move towards a higher and better level. Why do I feel that you're so strange today? He slightly lifted his lips and hesitated to speak. Nothing, just being too curious. Oh. I rummaged through my bag and found that I had left my keys at the company. I turned to Leo and said, I'll go back to get something. Okay, then I'll go with you. No, just wait for me here. He hesitated a little but finally agreed. I rushed back hurriedly. When I passed through the crossroads again, a blue sports car rushed straight towards me. The high beam was so bright that it almost blinded my eyes. I saw Cindy in the driver's seat showing a ferocious smile. Ava, go to hell. Cindy wanted to kill me. However, the shadow of the car accident in my previous life made me freeze for a moment and I even forgot to run away. Suddenly, I was embraced by someone whose body had a fragrance of lime fruit. Leo pushed me away and he stood in the position where I had been. Run. It was another rainy day. I fell to the ground and shouted loudly in his direction. The rain blurred my eyes. Only a loud bang was heard. There was a shock wave from the explosion, and thick black smoke billowed out. A black car rushed out from the opposite side and crashed head-on into Cindy's car. Leo was also injured by the explosion and was covered in blood. I rushed forward and hugged him. After he regained consciousness, he tightly held my hand and looked at me weakly. Ava, will you be with me? Fool, you're injured now. What nonsense are you talking about? I've liked you for a long time, a really long time. After saying the last sentence, his head gently dropped onto my shoulder. I clasped my fingers with his and whispered in his ear, okay. Leo, who always didn't show his true feelings, finally told his heart only when he was almost dying. Later, I sent him to the hospital. After the doctor examined him, it was confirmed that he was only slightly injured, and then I felt relieved. I took out my mobile phone to check the time and found that there were several missed calls on it. There was also a text message, and the sender was Ryan. I remembered his number. There were just a few simple words on it. Ava, I'm giving back the life I owed you. The end.